Supreme Fleet Commander Vexithara stood on the bridge of the massive warship Worldbreaker. The ship was so large that entire cities could fit inside it. Through the huge viewing window, he could see a small blue planet spinning slowly in the darkness of space. This was Earth, home to the creatures called humans. Vexithara's forearms crossed behind his back as he studied the planet. His purple skin gleamed under the bridge lights, and his 3 eyes focused on the world below. He had conquered 400 planets in his long career. This would be number 401. "Commander," said his aide, a thin creature with silver skin, "the intelligence reports are ready." Vexithara took the data tablet with one of his lower arms. The information made him laugh, a sound like grinding metal. Humans were pathetic. They had only discovered faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. Their weapons were primitive metal projectiles and chemical explosives. They had no psychic powers at all. Most amusing of all, they still fought wars among themselves on their own planet. "How many ships do they have?" Vexithara asked. "Our scouts counted maybe 300 vessels in their entire space fleet," the aide replied. "Most are small patrol ships. They have perhaps 20 ships that could be called warships." Vexithara laughed again. His fleet contained 9,900 ships. Each one was larger and more powerful than anything humans had ever built. The smallest ships in his fleet carried 500 warriors. The largest carried 10,000. His flagship alone could destroy entire planets. The Zephyrian hegemony had built this fleet over decades. 12 different alien species had contributed ships, weapons, and warriors. The energy shields on each vessel could stop any known weapon. The psychic warfare systems could drive enemy crews insane with fear. The plasma cannons could melt through solid rock from 1,000 miles away. "Send the standard surrender message," Vexithara ordered. The communications officer, a being that looked like a giant insect, clicked its mandibles. "Message sent, Commander. We should receive their reply within minutes." Vexithara walked to the tactical display. Holographic images showed his fleet spreading across the solar system. 8,000 assault cruisers formed the main attack force. 1,500 heavy destroyers protected the flanks. 300 dreadnoughts served as mobile fortresses. 95 carrier ships held millions of fighter craft. 5 command vessels, including his own Worldbreaker, coordinated the entire force. This was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Other species across the galaxy would hear about this victory. They would learn what happened to planets that refused to join the hegemony peacefully. "Commander," the communications officer said, "we have received a reply from the humans." "Put it on the main screen," Vexithara ordered. The image showed a human female in a blue uniform. She had short gray hair and cold eyes. Behind her, Vexithara could see other humans working at control stations. The woman looked directly at the camera and spoke in clear galactic common. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force. We have received your demand for surrender. Our response is simple. Come and take it." The transmission ended. Vexithara stared at the blank screen for a moment, then began laughing. The sound filled the bridge and made several of his officers step backward in fear. "Did you hear that?" he said between laughs. "Come and take it. These primitive creatures think they can resist us." His tactical officer, a large being covered in brown fur, looked worried. "Commander, perhaps we should study their defenses more carefully. They seemed very confident." "Confident?" Vexithara's laughter stopped. "They have 300 ships against our 10,000. They have metal bullets against our plasma weapons. They have no shields against our psychic attacks. What could they possibly have that would make them confident?" He turned to face his bridge crew. "Gentlemen, we are about to teach the galaxy an important lesson. This is what happens to species that refuse the generous offer of joining our hegemony. We will crush these humans so completely that other worlds will surrender just hearing our ships approach." The fleet moved deeper into the solar system. Vexithara had divided his forces into 3 groups. The first group would attack the outer planets, destroying any human bases they found. The second group would blockade Earth itself, preventing any escape. The third group would land on the planet and occupy the major cities. As they passed the giant planet Jupiter, sensors detected a small group of human ships hiding behind one of its moons. The tactical display showed about 200 vessels, exactly what the intelligence reports had predicted. "Look at them hiding like frightened children," Vexithara said. "They probably hope we will not notice them there." His weapons officer, a creature with 6 arms and no head, spoke through a voice box on its chest. "Commander, should we destroy them now or wait for them to surrender?" "Let them make the first move," Vexithara decided. "I want to see what these humans consider warfare. It will be amusing before we finish them." The human ships began moving. Instead of forming a battle line like civilized species, they scattered in all directions. Some dove toward Jupiter itself. Others accelerated toward the asteroid belt. A few seemed to be running away entirely. "Cowards," muttered the tactical officer. "They scatter like insects when the lights come on." But Vexithara was frowning. Something about the human movement patterns bothered him. They were too organized to be panic, too precise to be random. It almost looked like, "Commander," the sensor operator shouted. "Massive energy readings from the human ships." The main screen lit up with warnings. The scattered human ships were all firing at once, but not at the Zephyrian fleet. They were firing at empty space, sending their projectiles on long, curved paths around Jupiter. "What are they shooting at?" Vexithara demanded. His question was answered 30 seconds later. The metal projectiles that had seemed to miss everything suddenly appeared on the other side of Jupiter, moving at incredible speed. They had used the planet's gravity to accelerate their weapons far beyond normal velocity. The first projectiles struck the Zephyrian formation before anyone could react. 3 assault cruisers exploded instantly. The metal slugs punched through, their energy shields as if they were not there, then continued through the ship's hulls, reactors, and crew compartments. "Impossible," Vexithara roared. "Our shields can stop any weapon." More projectiles arrived, each one perfectly aimed at critical systems. The humans were not firing randomly. Every shot targeted shield generators, engine cores, or command centers. Ships that had ruled the galaxy for centuries were being destroyed by primitive metal bullets. "Return fire," Vexithara ordered. "Kill them all." But the human ships were no longer where the sensors said they should be. They had used their gravity-assisted maneuvers to change position constantly. The Zephyrian plasma weapons, designed for long-range precision shooting, could not track targets that moved so unpredictably. When the first engagement ended, Vexithara stared at his tactical display in shock. 400 of his ships were gone. 400. The humans had lost only 67 vessels, and they had been outnumbered 60-1. The surviving human ships regrouped near Mars, sending a simple message to the Zephyrian fleet. "Is that all you have?" For the first time in his long career, Supreme Fleet Commander Vexithara felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. These were not the primitive creatures his intelligence reports had described. These were something far more dangerous. These were humans, and they had been preparing for war their entire lives. Admiral Sarah Chen watched the alien fleet from the bridge of her flagship Unconquered. The massive enemy formation filled her tactical screens like a dark cloud. She had spent 30 years preparing for this day, but seeing nearly 10,000 enemy ships still made her stomach tight with fear. "Admiral," her communications officer said, "we're receiving data from the Jupiter engagement. Captain Rodriguez's group performed exactly as planned." Sarah nodded. The first part of Plan Thermopylae was complete, named after an ancient battle where a small force held off a massive army. The plan assumed humanity would always be outnumbered. Every tactic, every weapon, every strategy was built around that single fact. "How many enemy ships did we destroy?" she asked. 400 confirmed kills, Admiral. We lost 67 ships, including Captain Rodriguez's cruiser Defiant. Sarah closed her eyes for a moment. Captain Rodriguez had been her friend for 20 years. His ship had stayed behind to coordinate the final wave of projectiles, knowing he would not survive. 67 ships meant over 30,000 human lives lost in the first engagement, but they had killed 400 alien ships. That meant at least 200,000 enemy dead. The mathematics of warfare were always brutal, but today they favored humanity. "Admiral," her tactical officer called out. "The enemy fleet is advancing toward our position at Mars. They've changed their formation. More defensive, less aggressive." Sarah studied the display. The aliens were learning. They had grouped their ships closer together and positioned their largest vessels at the front. They were taking the human threat seriously now. "Good," she said. "Scared enemies make mistakes. Signal all ships. Execute Plan Thermopylae Phase 2. The human fleet around Mars began to move. Unlike the chaotic scattering at Jupiter, this time they formed into smaller groups of 5 to 10 ships each. These groups spread across a vast area of space, using asteroids and debris fields as cover. Sarah's ship Unconquered led the central group. The vessel was not the largest in the human fleet, but it carried the most advanced computers and the best crew. More importantly, it carried Sarah Chen, who had studied alien warfare tactics for 3 decades. "Admiral," her weapons officer, reported, "all railgun systems are charged and ready. Ammunition stores at maximum capacity." Sarah smiled grimly. The railguns were humanity's answer to alien energy shields. Instead of using plasma or laser weapons like every other species, humans had perfected the art of throwing metal very, very fast. The aliens' shields could stop energy, but they had never faced solid projectiles moving at 30% of light speed. "Enemy fleet entering engagement range," the tactical officer announced. "All ships," Sarah broadcast. "Remember your training. We are not here to win a fair fight. We are here to make them pay for every inch of space." The alien fleet opened fire first. Thousands of plasma beams and energy torpedoes filled the space around Mars with deadly light. The human ships scattered again, but this time they were ready. Each vessel had been equipped with new maneuvering systems that could change direction instantly, making them almost impossible to target. Sarah watched as plasma beams passed harmlessly through space where her ships had been moments before. The aliens were still thinking like conventional naval forces trying to engage in organized battle lines. Humans had abandoned that thinking centuries ago. "Return fire," Sarah ordered. "Target their shield generators first, then their engines." The human response was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of firing all at once, each ship fired at different times, sending their projectiles along carefully calculated paths. Some shots curved around asteroids. Others bounced off the surfaces of moons. A few even used the gravity of Mars itself to change direction mid-flight. The result was chaos for the alien fleet. Projectiles seemed to come from impossible directions at unpredictable times. Their advanced computers could not track the complex ballistic paths the humans were using. "Direct hit on alien dreadnought Starbane," reported the sensors officer. "Their shields are down. Massive hull damage." Sarah watched as the massive alien ship, larger than any human city, began to break apart. The railgun projectile had punched completely through the vessel, creating a tunnel of destruction from bow to stern. Thousands of alien warriors died in seconds. But the aliens were adapting quickly. Their psychic warfare systems activated, sending waves of fear and confusion toward the human ships. Other species had always surrendered when faced with these mental attacks. Sarah felt the alien thoughts pressing against her mind like cold fingers. Images of death and defeat filled her vision. She could hear screams from other ships as crew members were driven to panic by the psychic assault. "All ships," she broadcast through gritted teeth, "activate mental shields. Remember your training." The human response to psychic warfare was uniquely brutal. Instead of trying to resist the alien mental attacks, human scientists had learned to redirect them. Special equipment on each ship captured the psychic energy and fed it back to the aliens, amplified and distorted. The effect was immediate. Several alien ships suddenly stopped firing and began moving erratically. Their crews were experiencing their own fear weapons turned against them, magnified beyond their ability to control. "Admiral," her communications officer said with excitement, "we're receiving surrender signals from 3 alien vessels. Their crews are requesting permission to abandon ship." "Denied," Sarah said coldly. "No quarter asked, none given. They came here to destroy our world. Let them face the consequences." This was the part of human warfare that terrified other species. Humans did not take prisoners in battles for survival. They did not show mercy to invaders. They fought with the single-minded focus of a species that had spent its entire history learning to kill efficiently. The battle around Mars continued for 6 hours. Human ships darted between asteroids like deadly fish, striking at the alien fleet and disappearing before return fire could find them. When human ships were hit, their crews did not surrender. Instead, they turned their damaged vessels into weapons, ramming them into alien formations or detonating their reactors as improvised bombs. Captain Maria Santos commanded the converted freighter Lucky Strike. Her ship had been a cargo hauler, before the war, hastily fitted with armor and weapons. When alien fire crippled her engines, she made a decision that would be remembered forever. "This is Lucky Strike," she broadcast to the fleet. "My ship is finished, but I'm not done fighting. Tell my daughter I love her." Santos aimed her crippled ship directly at the alien command vessel Worldbreaker. The massive enemy ship tried to destroy the tiny freighter, but Santos had filled her cargo hold with antimatter charges. When the alien weapons hit her ship, the explosion was visible from Earth. The Worldbreaker survived, but barely. Its shields failed completely and massive holes appeared in its hull. Most importantly, the alien fleet saw what humans were willing to do. They saw a species that treated certain death as just another weapon to use against their enemies. By the time the alien fleet retreated from Mars, they had lost over 6,000 ships. The human fleet was reduced to less than 100 vessels, but they had achieved something impossible. They had made the most powerful military force in the galaxy afraid. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on her damaged bridge and watched the alien fleet withdraw toward Earth. Half her crew was dead or wounded. Her ship was barely functional, but in her eyes burned the same fire that had driven humanity to dominate their own world. "Signal all remaining ships," she ordered. "Fall back to Earth orbital defense grid. Phase 3 of Plan Thermopylae is now active." The real battle was just beginning. The aliens had learned that humans were dangerous, but they had not yet discovered how dangerous. Earth itself was waiting, and the planet had been preparing for this day for 50 years. The enemy would learn that invading the human homeworld was not just difficult, it was the last mistake they would ever make. Supreme Fleet Commander Vexithara stared at the tactical display with growing horror. His mighty fleet of 9,900 ships had been reduced to 3,700 vessels in just 2 battles. The humans had destroyed over 6,000 of his ships with fewer than 300 of their own. "Commander," his tactical officer said nervously, "perhaps we should call for reinforcements from the hegemony." Vexthara's 3 eyes turned toward the officer with deadly intensity. "You think I should tell the Hegemony Council that I need help destroying a primitive species with metal projectiles?" The officer stepped backward quickly. "No, Commander, of course not." But privately, Vexithara was beginning to wonder if reinforcements might be necessary. These humans did not fight like any species he had encountered. They did not follow the rules of civilized warfare. They fought like wild animals, using every dirty trick and desperate tactic they could imagine. "Long-range sensors are detecting movement in the asteroid belt," the sensor operator reported. "Something large is approaching from the outer system." "Show me," Vexthara ordered. The main screen displayed what looked like a small asteroid moving toward the inner system. It was perhaps 2 miles across, made of iron and rock, and appeared completely natural, but something about its movement pattern was wrong. "Computer," Vexithara said, "analyze the trajectory of that asteroid." The ship's artificial intelligence ran the calculations instantly. "Commander, the object's path is not natural. It has been altered by artificial means." "Estimated arrival time at Earth?" 6 hours. Vexithara felt cold fear creeping up his spine. "Are you telling me the humans have turned asteroids into weapons?" His question was answered when the asteroid suddenly ignited. Massive fusion engines hidden beneath its surface. The entire rocky body began accelerating directly toward his fleet, now revealed as a weapon platform the size of a mountain. "All ships, evasive maneuvers," Vexithara shouted. "Concentrate fire on that asteroid." Thousands of plasma beams struck the approaching rock. But the humans had armored it with layers of metal and ceramics specifically designed to resist energy weapons. The asteroid continued its approach, picking up speed as its engines burned brighter. "Commander," the weapons officer called out, "the asteroid is opening. There are launch bays inside." The rocky exterior split apart like a flower, revealing hundreds of missile launchers hidden within. Each launcher fired dozens of nuclear warheads, filling space with thousands of atomic weapons all targeted at the alien fleet. But these were not ordinary nuclear weapons. Human scientists had learned that alien shields could partially deflect nuclear explosions. So they had developed something new: nuclear warheads that created artificial gravity wells when they exploded. The first warheads reached the alien formation and detonated simultaneously. Instead of normal nuclear explosions, they created dozens of miniature black holes that lasted for only seconds. But those seconds were enough to tear apart any ship caught in their gravity fields. Entire squadrons of alien vessels were crushed, like tin cans as space itself twisted around them. The lucky ships that avoided the gravity weapons were caught in the conventional nuclear explosions that followed. "Commander!" the sensor operator screamed. "Multiple contacts throughout the asteroid belt. They're all asteroids, but they're all moving." Vexithara watched in disbelief as dozens more asteroids revealed themselves as camouflaged weapons platforms. Each one was different. Some carried massive railguns that could fire projectiles across the entire solar system. Others launched clouds of smaller weapons that swarmed toward his fleet like angry insects. "How long have they been preparing this?" he whispered. The answer came from his intelligence officer, a thin creature with pale skin and large eyes. "Commander, we're detecting radio transmissions from the asteroid weapons. They're using a code based on human mathematics. Computer analysis suggests these platforms have been under construction for at least 20 years. 20 years. The humans had been preparing for interstellar war for 20 years. Even though they had only achieved faster-than-light travel 50 years ago, they had spent nearly half of their spacefaring existence getting ready to fight someone like the hegemony. "Sir," the communications officer interrupted, "we're receiving a transmission from the human planet called Mars." "Mars? But we destroyed their fleet there." "The transmission is not from ships, Commander. It's from the planet itself." The main screen showed the red surface of Mars, but something was wrong with it. Massive sections of the planet were opening like giant doors, revealing enormous structures hidden beneath the surface. "This is Mars Defense Command," a human voice said calmly. "You have 30 seconds to alter course away from Earth, or we will demonstrate why attacking our worlds was a mistake." Vexithara laughed, though it sounded forced even to himself. "What can a planet possibly do to threaten my fleet?" His answer came 30 seconds later when Mars fired. The entire planet had been converted into a weapon. Magnetic acceleration systems, built into the planet's core, launched projectiles at incredible velocities. But these projectiles were not ordinary shells. They were chunks of the planet itself, pieces of Mars hurled through space at nearly the speed of light. The first chunk of Martian rock, weighing several thousand tons, struck the alien formation with the force of a nuclear weapon. The kinetic energy alone was enough to vaporize a dozen ships instantly. More chunks followed, turning the space around Mars into a shooting gallery with the alien fleet as targets. "Full retreat," Vexithara ordered. "All ships, maximum speed away from Mars." But the humans were not finished. As his fleet fled toward Earth, more surprises revealed themselves. Asteroids that had seemed empty suddenly sprouted weapons. Space stations that had appeared abandoned came to life with missile batteries. Even pieces of space debris turned out to be camouflaged mines that exploded when ships passed too close. The humans had weaponized their entire solar system. Captain Lisa Park commanded the defense station hidden inside the moon Europa. Her facility had been disguised as a scientific research base for 15 years, but it was actually a military fortress containing enough firepower to destroy a small fleet. "All batteries open fire," she ordered. "Show these aliens what happens when they threaten Earth." Europa revealed massive gun ports hidden beneath its icy surface. The weapons inside were railguns the size of skyscrapers, powered by the moon's own rotation. They fired projectiles that could penetrate any known armor, guided by targeting systems that could track individual ships across millions of miles. But what truly terrified the alien fleet was not the weapons themselves. It was the realization that every human world, every human station, every piece of human space infrastructure was a potential weapon. The humans had not built a civilization. They had built a war machine disguised as a civilization. As Vexithara's fleet approached Earth, his sensors detected something that made no sense. The small blue planet was surrounded by what appeared to be a cloud of space debris. Millions of pieces of metal and rock floated in Earth's orbital space, looking like the remains of old satellites and space stations. "Commander," his sensor operator said with a trembling voice, "the debris field is moving. It's not random junk, it's positioning itself around our fleet." Each piece of debris was actually a remote-controlled weapon platform. Some carried nuclear charges. Others mounted small railguns. A few were simply chunks of metal designed to ram into enemy ships at high speed. Together they formed a defensive network around Earth that could attack from any direction at any time. But the most shocking revelation came when Earth itself began to change. The planet's surface started opening in hundreds of locations, revealing defense installations that dwarfed anything on Mars. Massive gun batteries rose from the ground. Missile silos opened across entire continents. The planet's magnetic field itself was somehow being used to accelerate weapons to impossible velocities. "Commander," his aide whispered, "what kind of species builds weapons into their own homeworld?" Vexithara had no answer. In 400 conquered worlds, he had never encountered anything like this. Other species built cities, art, centers of learning. Humans had apparently spent their entire development as a spacefaring race preparing for war. The first human orbital weapons opened fire. Vexithara realized the horrible truth. His intelligence reports had been completely wrong. The humans were not primitives who had recently discovered space travel. They were a warrior species that had been planning for galactic warfare from the moment they left their planet. They had wanted someone to invade them. They had been waiting for it. They had prepared for it with a dedication that bordered on insanity. The invasion fleet that had conquered 400 worlds was about to discover what happened when an unstoppable force met an immovable object, and in this case, the immovable object had very large guns. Lieutenant General David Park stood in the command center buried 3 miles beneath the Rocky Mountains. The massive underground facility had been built in secret over 30 years, designed to coordinate Earth's final defense. Around him, hundreds of officers worked at control stations, managing a battle that would determine the fate of humanity. "General," his aide reported, "the alien fleet has entered Earth's orbital space. We count approximately 1,200 remaining vessels. They're forming attack formation above North America." David nodded grimly. The aliens had lost over 8,000 ships getting this far, but they still had enough firepower to destroy human civilization. The final phase of Plan Thermopylae was about to begin, and everyone in the command center knew that most of them would not live to see its end. "Signal all orbital platforms," David ordered. "Execute Protocol Omega. Show them what Earth really looks like when she's angry." Above the planet's surface, the final deception was revealed. What the aliens had thought was a cloud of space debris suddenly came alive with purpose. Millions of objects that had appeared to be random junk revealed themselves as carefully positioned weapon platforms. Each piece of debris was a remote-controlled warhead, positioned over months to create a 3-dimensional minefield around Earth. Some contained nuclear charges designed to create electromagnetic pulses that would disable alien electronics. Others carried conventional explosives meant to damage ship hulls. The smallest ones were simply metal projectiles programmed to ram into enemy vessels at maximum velocity. The alien fleet found itself flying into a trap that had taken decades to prepare. Admiral Sarah Chen watched from her damaged flagship as thousands of hidden weapons revealed themselves. Her ship, Unconquered, had barely survived the fighting at Mars, but she had insisted on commanding Earth's orbital defenses personally. She would not ask her people to die for a cause she was not willing to die for herself. "Admiral." "Her weapons," officer reported. "All lunar batteries are online and ready to fire." Sarah smiled coldly. The moon had been humanity's greatest deception. For 50 years, it had appeared to be nothing more than a mining colony and research station. In reality, the entire far side of the moon had been converted into the largest weapons platform ever built by any species. "Fire," she ordered simply. The moon opened like a mechanical flower. Massive sections of its surface moved aside, revealing gun batteries that stretched across hundreds of miles. Each weapon was larger than most alien warships, powered by fusion. Reactors built into the moon's core. The lunar bombardment was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Projectiles the size of buildings were fired from the moon's surface, accelerated by magnetic fields so powerful they could be felt on Earth. Each projectile carried enough kinetic energy to destroy several alien ships, and hundreds were fired, every minute. But the aliens were not helpless. Supreme Fleet Commander Vex Thara had learned from the previous battles, and his remaining ships had been reorganized for maximum survival. They spread out across a vast area of space, making it impossible for the human weapons to target them all at once. "Return fire on the moon," Vex Thara ordered from his damaged flagship. "If we can destroy their main weapons platform, we can still win this battle." Thousands of alien plasma beams focused on the lunar surface, creating explosions visible from Earth. Entire sections of the moon's weapon systems were destroyed in the bombardment. But for every gun battery the aliens destroyed, 2 more revealed themselves from hidden positions. The humans had not just weaponized the moon. They had turned it into a fortress so heavily armed that destroying it completely would take days of sustained bombardment. Days that Vex Thara no longer had. On Earth's surface, the real horror of human warfare was about to be revealed. As alien bombardment began to penetrate the orbital defenses, the planet itself joined the battle. Every major city revealed defense installations that had been hidden for decades. Skyscrapers opened to reveal missile launchers. Parks and playgrounds contained concealed railgun batteries. Even schools and hospitals had been built with hidden weapon systems. Dr. Elizabeth Martinez had spent 20 years working as a teacher in Denver, Colorado. Her students had no idea that their elementary school was also a military command center. When the alien attack began, she calmly led her children to the underground shelter, then returned to her classroom to activate the weapon systems built into the school's foundation. "This is Sierra Base 7, she reported to the military network. "Anti-aircraft systems online, ready to engage enemy targets." Across the planet, millions of civilians revealed themselves as part of Earth's defense network. Teachers became weapons operators. Factory workers transformed their facilities into ammunition plants. Even children too young to fight helped by carrying supplies and maintaining equipment. The aliens had expected to face a military force. Instead, they found themselves fighting an entire species that had been preparing for war their whole lives. But the most terrifying revelation came when the aliens attempted to land ground forces on Earth's surface. The humans had studied every invasion in their history, learning from each victory and defeat. They had prepared for ground warfare with the same deadly efficiency they had shown in space. Major Elena Vasquez commanded the defense of Mexico City when the first alien dropships landed in the city center. She had been born in the city, raised in its streets, and she knew every building and alley. More importantly, she knew which ones contained surprises for unwelcome visitors. "All units," she broadcast to her forces, "let them land. Let them get comfortable. Then show them why no one conquers Earth." The alien warriors who emerged from their dropships found themselves in what appeared to be an abandoned city. The humans seemed to have fled in panic, leaving behind empty buildings and deserted streets. The aliens advanced confidently, expecting easy victory. They walked into the most sophisticated urban warfare trap ever created. Every building in the city center had been prepared for urban combat. Windows were actually concealed weapon ports. Sewers contained networks of tunnels that allowed human forces to move unseen. Even the streets themselves were weapons, rigged with explosives that could be detonated remotely. The aliens found themselves fighting an enemy that could attack from any direction at any time. Human soldiers appeared from hidden positions, fired their weapons, and vanished before return fire could reach them. Entire alien platoons disappeared into buildings that seemed empty, but were actually death traps filled with automated defenses. But what truly broke the alien spirit was the discovery that human civilians would not surrender. Families that had seemed to flee in terror revealed themselves as trained resistance fighters. Elderly humans turned out to be veterans of previous wars who knew exactly how to kill efficiently. Even human children participated in the defense, serving as scouts and messengers for the military forces. The aliens had conquered 400 worlds, but they had never faced a species where every individual was a potential combatant. As the Yoe battle raged across Earth's surface and orbital space, Lieutenant General David Park received a report that made him smile for the first time in days. "General," his communications officer announced, "we're receiving surrender requests from multiple alien vessels. They're asking for permission to withdraw from the system." David's smile faded as he considered the request. The aliens had come to destroy human civilization. They had killed millions of people in their attacks on Mars and the asteroid belt. They had shown no mercy when they held the advantage. "Signal all human forces," David said quietly. "No surrender accepted, no quarter given. They came here to destroy our world. Let them face the consequences of that choice." This decision would haunt alien nightmares for generations. Other species had learned to expect mercy from their enemies, some chance to surrender and save their lives when defeat became certain. Humans offered no such mercy to those who threatened their homeworld. The battle continued with increasing desperation on both sides. The aliens fought with the fury of beings who knew they were facing extinction. The humans fought with the cold determination of a species defending their only home in the universe. But the outcome was no longer in doubt. Earth's defenses had been planned by people who understood that humanity might only get one chance to prove they could defend themselves. Every weapon, every tactic, every strategy had been designed with a single goal: make the cost of attacking Earth so terrible that no other species would ever try it again. As alien ships continued to die in Earth's orbital space, Supreme Fleet, Commander Vexithara realized that he was witnessing the birth of a new galactic power. The humans were not just defending their world, they were sending a message to every species in the galaxy. Earth was not just a planet, it was a fortress, and humanity was not just another species. They were the most dangerous warriors the galaxy had ever produced. Supreme Fleet Commander Vexithara looked around his damaged bridge with the eyes of a being who had seen the impossible. Of his mighty fleet of 9,900 vessels, only 17 ships remained functional enough to attempt escape from the Sol system. The rest were debris floating in the cold vacuum of space, testament to human fury. His flagship Worldbreaker barely deserved the name anymore. Hull breaches had been sealed with emergency foam. Half the bridge crew was dead. The main engines were destroyed, forcing the ship to rely on maneuvering thrusters for propulsion. But they were alive, which was more than could be said for over 2 million of his warriors. "Commander," his tactical officer whispered, "the human ships are withdrawing. They're letting us go." Vexithara stared at the tactical display. The remaining human vessels, perhaps 30 ships in total, were indeed pulling back from the battle zone. After fighting with such terrible ferocity for days, they were simply allowing the 17 alien survivors to limp away from Earth. "Why?" he asked aloud. "Why let us live when they showed no mercy to anyone else?" The answer came in a transmission from Admiral Sarah Chen aboard the human flagship Unconquered. Her face appeared on the main screen, showing a woman aged by battle but unbroken by the terrible cost of victory. "Commander Vexithara," she said calmly, "I am Admiral Chen of the Earth Defense Force. You and your remaining ships are free to leave our system." Vexithara found his voice. "Why? You could destroy us easily now. Your weapons could finish what you started." Sarah's expression never changed. "Because someone needs to carry the message. Someone needs to tell the galaxy what happened here. Your 17 ships will serve that purpose better than 17 destroyed hulks." The transmission ended, leaving Vexithara to contemplate the cold calculation behind human mercy. They were not sparing his ships out of kindness. They were creating living messengers who would spread fear throughout the galaxy. As his damaged fleet began the long journey back to hegemony space, Vexithara ordered his officers to compile a complete battle report. The document would be the most important military analysis in galactic history, though few would believe it initially. Captain Zexvor, commanding one of the surviving destroyers, submitted his portion of the report with shaking hands. He had commanded ships in 40 different campaigns, but nothing had prepared him for the human way of warfare. "They do not fight like civilized beings," he wrote. "They fight like cornered animals, but with the intelligence of advanced beings. Every human ship that died took multiple alien vessels with it. They showed no fear of death, only determination to inflict maximum damage before dying." Commander Thyles, the only surviving carrier captain, added her own observations. "The humans have weaponized their entire civilization. Their schools contained weapon systems. Their hospitals were built as fortresses. Even their children participated in the war effort. This is not a military force occupying a planet. This is an entire species organized for warfare." But the most disturbing report came from Major Krethak, one of the few ground force commanders, who survived the landing attempts on Earth. His account would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for generations. "Human urban warfare capabilities exceed all known tactical parameters," he wrote. "They have turned their cities into three-dimensional battlefields where every building is a potential weapon platform. But more than this, they have created a population that cannot be conquered. Every human civilian is a potential combatant. Every human child knows how to support military operations. They have not built a civilization that can fight. They have built a civilization that is a weapon." The journey back to hegemony space took 6 months. 6 months for the 17 surviving ships to process what they had witnessed. 6 months for the crews to understand that they had not just lost a battle. They had encountered a species that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. During the long voyage, Vexithara received regular reports from his surviving officers about the psychological condition of their crews. Many warriors refused to speak about the battle. Others had nightmares about human ships ramming their vessels while broadcasting war songs. A few had complete mental breakdowns and had to be sedated for the remainder of the journey. They fought with joy. One traumatized sensor operator reported to the ship's medical officer. When their ships were dying, they were singing. When their weapons ran out of ammunition, they used their ships as missiles. They celebrated while they died, because they were taking us with them. Word of the fleet's return reached the Hegemony Council long before the ships arrived at the capital world of Zentari Prime. The political leadership had been preparing for victory celebrations. Instead, they found themselves facing the greatest military disaster in their species' history. Council leader Mordeth waited on the landing platform as Vexithara's shuttle touched down. The Supreme Fleet Commander emerged as a being transformed by battle. His once proud posture was bent with exhaustion. His eyes held the haunted look of someone who had seen the impossible. "Report," Mordeth demanded simply. "We have encountered a species unlike any other in the galaxy," Vexithara replied. "The humans are not primitives. They are the most effective warriors we have ever faced, and they are very, very angry." The formal debriefing took place in the Council's most secure chamber. Military leaders from all 12 member species of the hegemony attended, expecting to hear about new human technologies or innovative tactics that could be countered in future campaigns. What they heard instead was a description of warfare that challenged every assumption about civilized behavior. The humans had not just defended their world. They had turned their entire solar system into a weapon designed to destroy any invading force. "They knew we were coming," Vexithara explained to the stunned council. "Not specifically us, but someone like us. They have spent decades preparing for interstellar warfare. Their entire civilization has been organized around the assumption that someday someone would try to conquer them." "And their response?" asked General Thuvek of the Hegemony Military Command. "Total warfare," Vexithara replied. "Not just their military, but their entire species. Every human is a potential combatant. Every human installation is a potential weapon. They do not distinguish between military and civilian targets because they do not have civilian populations in any sense we would recognize." The council chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. The hegemony had built its power on the ability to conquer other species through superior technology and overwhelming force. But the humans had created a defense that made conquest impossible. They had made their world too expensive to take. Within days of the debriefing, intelligence reports began arriving from across the galaxy. Human ships had been detected in multiple star systems, not as invaders but as ambassadors. They were broadcasting the same message to every species they encountered. This is humanity. We are still here. We are still fighting. We know what you are thinking. You are wondering if we are a threat to you. The answer is simple. Only if you threaten us first. We do not seek conquest. We do not desire your worlds. But if you come for ours, you will learn why 9,183 ships was not enough. The message was broadcast in over 40,000 languages, reaching every known spacefaring civilization. But it was not the words that carried the real meaning. It was the images that accompanied them. Footage of the battle around Earth, showing human ships ramming alien vessels while their crews sang war songs. Videos of human children helping to load ammunition while their cities burned around them. Pictures of an entire species that had chosen to fight rather than surrender, no matter the cost. The effect on galactic politics was immediate and profound. Species that had been considering expansion suddenly found themselves worried about defense. The Zephyrian hegemony began to dissolve as member worlds withdrew, preferring neutrality to association with the force that had provoked humanity's wrath. Other major powers began offering humanity defensive pacts and trade agreements, not out of friendship, but out of the recognition that having humans as allies was far preferable to having them as enemies. On his deathbed years later, Vexithara would dictate one final report about the human war. It would become required reading at every military academy in known space. "We thought we were conquering primitives," he said weakly to his aide. "We discovered instead that we had awakened something that should have been left sleeping. The humans are not the strongest species in the galaxy. They are not the smartest or the most advanced, but they are the most dangerous, because they understand something that we forgot long ago. Sometimes the only way to have peace is to be so terrifying in war that no one dares to disturb it." The 17 ships that escaped Earth became symbols of a new era in galactic politics, an era where humanity stood as the species that others whispered about in fearful tones, the species that had proven that advanced technology and superior numbers meant nothing against beings willing to die rather than surrender. Earth rebuilt stronger than before. The orbital defenses were expanded. The hidden weapons were improved. The civilian population trained even harder for the next invasion that might never come, because humans had learned the most important lesson of all.